What'd he say his name was?
Gebatron. Hello everyone, I am Gebatron, and this video was inspired by a post on Reddit, so we're going to talk about defenses in Hell Let Loose for a little bit. So this post was made by an enterprising engineer, Lake3242, who was trying to point out to other players that you can build in places that maybe you wouldn't normally think to, such as enemy territory or red zones, and that finding good places to build in them can be useful. He specifically pointed out how blocking this bridge in Carentan can have an effect on how the enemy goes about things. I agreed, so I told this player that I appreciated his post. Someone else chimed in saying that this post was useless because the Germans don't need the bridge to cross the canal, and that the post was, in fact, bad for the community. It devolved from there, so I'm not going to talk too much more about the thread, but I will link to it in the description for you to go read if you want, although I do encourage you to refrain from engaging in the thread, as that conversation is best left done at this point, unless you want to go show Lake some love. I do encourage that. So anyway, here's a picture of the defenses proposed by the engineer. So I went into my test server and did my best to recreate them so we can talk about how they could help your team. Keep in mind the strong point that Lake was using in their example was customs, just like we will be here. Okay, the first thing the commenter said was that you can cross the river without the bridge and it won't slow you down or do any good, that it's a waste of time to build. He even provided a short video of himself crossing the canal to the south, so that's going to be our first scenario. So right off the bat, our defenses have already done something that most people overlook or straight up misunderstand about defenses. It's not always about stopping the enemy. It's about redirecting them and making the battlefield a more predictable place. So now that we have a good idea that traffic will be going south, you can place a mine in the grass near the bridge, which will make it much harder to see than one that was directly on the bridge in the first place. So maybe our mine costs them a little bit of time and resources. Already off to an okay start. So now, even though German traffic crossed the river, they can't immediately turn north here, which is arguably the best way to get near customs. But that's no problem. They can just go a bit further west and then turn north and, oh shoot, our engineer had an extra hedgehog, it seems. So that's my next point. Because traffic has become a little more predictable, we can now anticipate movement and expand our defenses into what begins to be a network or a defensive system. But even this isn't a big deal, as the Germans can just go further west before they turn north and... oh damn. Well, let's keep going. Now they can turn up here and boom, there's a mine. So after spawning a new tank and coming all the way back here, they try this road a second time because lightning never strikes twice in the same spot, and boom, 2 mines on the same road. That's right, because people are always trying to take the path of least resistance. Or you know what, maybe this player knew better than to try the same road twice and went further west. Oh no, another mine in a choke point, and I think you're starting to see my point here. Now we can mine this major intersection if we have mines available, or we can set up ambushes here or near here, or we can notify friendly armor about likely areas where traffic will be coming from, and this all started with some defenses across a bridge far away from any strong points. But now you're saying, Gebatron, you can just cross the bridge to the north and avoid all of this. That's what high-level players would do anyway. And that is correct, so let's talk about that now. So something I did not know until making this video is that you can cross right here if you want, which would completely bypass our defenses. I just never tried crossing here before, but that's okay, we learned something new, and now that we know this, we can block this off too with either a hedgehog or a barricade. Now we have forced the Germans to come further north to make their crossing, again making the battlefield more predictable. Once they come north, they can cross here. They can even continue and cross this canal to get back to the area we were trying so hard to prevent them from getting to in the first place. But we have an ace up our sleeve. A beautiful spot for an AT gun or armor to sit here, just waiting to catch any enemy traffic that thinks that they can pull this move off. And all of this could be made possible by placing some obstructions across a bridge, even though you don't need the bridge to cross the canal. What it does is simply makes the battlefield a little more predictable. Now, are these these defenses perfect? No, not at all. First is you'll need supplies. Nothing that can't be accomplished with only a single supply truck or a 3-player squad working together, but you'll still need supplies. Second is some coordination. It will take some time and effort to make any decent defensive network, let alone a good and well thought out one. Was the original proposal complete? No, as you'll always have to build supplemental structures to take advantage of your other structures. Remember, think of defenses as a network and not as individual structures. They should redirect the enemy and funnel the enemy and make their movements more predictable. Could these defenses hurt our own team? The canal locks was not a strong point in Lake's original proposal, but it is in my example, so eventually these roadblocks could hurt our own traffic that may want to use this bridge. So either be ready to dismantle them when the time comes, or provide friendly traffic with an alternate route. Engineers placing defenses that hurt their own team is the #1 mistake I see a lot of engineers make. One way we can help with this is to place our hedgehogs as close to the enemy's entry point as possible versus our entry point. So these 2 barricades have to stay to close off this frontage road, but these hedgehogs should actually be placed here. It gives us more of the bridge than it gives them. You'll likely have to replace your mines every now and then, and of course all it would take is an enemy satchel or 2 or an enemy engineer to dismantle your structures for this to all start falling apart, but they still have to do it. Making the enemy do things they would rather not is always going to be good for you. It's distracting. It's annoying. It takes time and effort and coordination. Even if your defenses only last 10 minutes, that's still 10 minutes where you had a better idea of what was going to happen than before. So the reason I liked the Reddit post and encouraged Lake in posting it was because it made a really good point about how you don't have to build defenses only in strong points to affect the match. Even if at first it may seem like it's useless, what it does is get people to perhaps see a new perspective, maybe something they hadn't really thought about before. I like to encourage that type of behavior in the community, and it keeps people posting their ideas. If we see flaws in someone's ideas, it's okay to be critical, like with this perfect comment by Mr. Gnome. Pause to read. But telling people their ideas and contributions to the community are actively hurting it just because we can't think outside the box is not a good way to improve the situation. I made a whole video about that kind of attitude at the top right. If you know something that someone maybe has overlooked, then it's perfectly fine to tell them or to say something like, hey, you'll have to block off spot X and Y for this to work. You know, you'll be surprised how many people will respond with a, oh, thanks, I didn't know that. Then they can go and make their ideas even better. So anyway, that's just a quick video on this stuff to hopefully get players to approach building defenses in a way they maybe hadn't thought of before, and just a little commentary on how to provide productive feedback in the community. What are your best building tips? I personally think Carentan and Purple Heart Lane are a couple of really good maps where building a little can have larger effects. But what are your favorite maps or spots on those maps? Do you guys want a more in-depth building guide? Maybe a building tips guide? Let us know down in the comments. Check for a pinned comment as I put any updates or great tips from you guys down there. Check the description for ways to support the channel. Subscribe. Do all the things that help the algorithm. Consider joining for perks like early access to videos like these. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.